Hello, my name is Eugene and you are on Azarov Tech channel. For the past 6 months I've been using one and only smartphone as my daily driver, Redmi Note 8 Pro. This means that I've never switched to another smartphone during this period and did not put my SIM card in any other phones. And in this video I will tell you everything that happened with this smartphone during this time. Do not judge strictly, this will not be a detailed review. I think you already saw plenty of reviews. This will be the experience in the use, and at the end of the video I'll tell whether I can recommend this smartphone to buy now or there are any alternatives which you could look in addition to this phone. Okay, enough talk, let's get started and let's talk about money first. At the time of recording this video, I found prices from a good seller on AliExpress for $183, which means that this phone costs about $60 less in half a year. But on Amazon, you will find this phone for $215 for 64GB version. I will leave my referral links to global versions of smartphones in the description if you are interested in this phone. Okay, let's get back to the review. The first thing that I want to tell you about is the tactile sensations and about the size. I want to say right away that the size of the phone is not small. It's a really big phone, and in addition to the size, I always protect all my smartphones with cases and they become even thicker. I use the phone with a Nilkin case. By the way, the new Nilkin cases with new buttons are not good because the power button on the cover falls off over time. On Redmi Note 5, Nilkin was different because there were no buttons there. In general, I do not advise buying the current Nilkin cases. Stay away from them. But despite the falling out button, Nilkin did his job very well. Firstly, case protected phone from scratches, and secondly, once he had to protect the phone from falling onto the asphalt. And look at how the phone looks after 6 months, almost like new. Yes, here between the fingerprint scanner and the cameras some scratches appeared because it's just glossy plastic. There are scratches on the back despite of the case, but they are almost invisible thanks to the color that I chose. This is a very practical color, unlike dark colors. What I can say about screen protection? Yes, scratches appeared, but they are not too expressive, and when I use phone I do not see them. I want to know that I use the phone without any protection on the screen. Corning Gorilla Glass 5 performed very well. I also want to know that the buttons and shiny plastic around the perimeter of the smartphone are now covered with small tiny scratches, but it is hard to notice without looking closely. It's also difficult to notice the pixels on the screen because PPI is 395. Full HD Plus resolution, for me this is really enough. IPS screens are always not perfect in Redmi series phones because they do not install perfect screens there. Yes, it is not AMOLED like in Samsung A51 or A50, therefore the black color is not completely black, but I set myself almost always dark black wallpapers. This creates the effect of a full screen on the entire front surface. In the sun you can see the screen, let's say a standard. You can read something and it is good. For reading in darkness, this smartphone has a night mode, which I often use by the way because it's easier to look at the screen and it feels like my eyes are not burnt so much thanks to the warm color tones that turn on with this mode. In general, I'm very satisfied with Note 8 Pro screen. Let's go further. Stability, speed and system bugs. I want to remind you that Xiaomi did an experiment with this phone and installed the MediaTek G90T processor. And I can tell you with confidence that this experiment was a success. This processor copes with any tasks that I set for it, but not only is the processor good here. This phone has also fast UFS 2.1 memory, and this also contributes to the speed of the system. For games, I'm not a gamer at all, but sometimes I play Call of Duty especially for reviews. This game is demanding, so I'll tell you, I set the maximum possible graphics, I played for several hours and the game goes on without any problem, smooth and generally without any jumps. Yes, the smartphone heats up at the top in the camera area, but this does not interfere with the game. As for bugs, I have some to tell you about. That's what I came across. It used to happen that the brightness slider for some reason stops working. That is, I am trying to change the brightness, but it does not work and the brightness starts to change only after I turn the auto brightness on and off. Once it was so that there was a problem with proximity sensor, the screen was turning off, not only during a conversation, but also in any situation, in any application. That is, you bring your hand to the top of the phone and the screen goes blank. This was cured by a reboot. Sometimes the screen rotation gets stuck, but I cannot say that this did not happen on other smartphones. It happens. The animation also has less FPS sometimes, especially when you turn on full screen mode without the bottom buttons, but I noticed this on all budget Xiaomi smartphones that I used, therefore I did not pay much attention to this. Next, I would like to briefly talk about the battery. 4500 mAh. Often this was enough for me even for 2 days. Here are my screenshots, and on them you can see that the screen on time was from 5 to 8 hours, depending on the complexity of use. I had several tests of smartphone batteries on the channel where this phone participated, and there he showed himself quite well. I'll leave a link to the tests in the comments and in the description. This smartphone charges in 2 hours with standard charging. The first half hour is 35%. I cannot call such charging very fast charging, but it is normal medium charge. According to the music, nothing supernatural. The speaker plays without wheezing, but also without any special moments that I would like to highlight. In the same way I can say about the sound in the headphones and earphones. The sound in the ears is normal with a minimum margin of a volume, but it seems to me a little lacking in the bass. But I want to know that this is a rather subjective moment. Most of all, I use the smartphone with Bluetooth headphones, OnePlus Bullets 2. The Bluetooth connection is just excellent and I had absolutely no problems. Cameras. I used a very large amount of smartphones and I have something to compare cameras with. So with the Redmi Note 8 Pro camera, everything is just fine. Camera takes photos at a good level, and I want to underline it is the camera, not the cameras, because in any case most often I use only one main sensor, and sometimes I also use the one for portrait photos. Samsung f1.9 main sensor with 64 megapixel without optical stabilization. On the bottom, ultra-wide 8 megapixel OmniVision sensor without autofocus and of course without stabilization. At the top there is a 2 megapixel sensor for depth for portrait shots and another sensor for macro shots. I want to know that this macro sensor is with autofocus, but only 2 megapixels, so the pictures are so-so. In front we have a Samsung 20 megapixels front camera with aperture 2.0. It makes good pictures even in poor lighting condition. Everything looks relatively well, but during the day there are overexposures if the background is very bright. The wide angle camera here is also so-so. I would say it is here for a greater quantity of cameras, and in my opinion with poor lighting it is better not to do any photos at all with this cam. It lacks megapixels and photos are very poor in details, as well as with the macro camera. This camera is also lacks resolution. These are examples of photos from the main and from other cameras. Yes, this is not an iPhone or best Huawei, but the pictures are really good for the price of a smartphone. By the way, I forgot to mention that you can also install Google Camera here. Photos are better in some situations. The video shooting did not surprise me. 4K 30 FPS and Full HD 60 FPS are without stabilization. Full HD 30 frames are with electronic stabilization, therefore with poor lighting video becomes blurry when you move. Here are examples of video recording. «4K 30 кадров. Смотрим, как фокусирует. Ну, неплохо фокусирует он. Ну, такая быстрая фокусировка. Вот так у нас тут красиво. Full HD 60 кадров. Здесь уже фокусировка гораздо хуже. Она такая медленная. Иногда даже не фокусирует. Вот как сейчас. О, фокусирует. Ну, в общем, так. Так, а это Full HD 30 кадров, то же самое. Фокусировка тоже неплохая. By the way, I forgot to mention the excellent work of the proximity sensor during a conversation. Why I mention it? Because very often in Xiaomi smartphones there are problems with proximity sensors. This appears by the fact that during a conversation the screen does not go blank, and while you speak you accidentally press everything with your cheek on the screen. So here with this sensor everything is good. It works as it should. The fingerprint scanner is very fast, no complaints, it's very conveniently located and my finger rests directly on it. I want to mention separately NFC. it's cool that it is here. It's quite difficult to find NFC on alternative phones for the money. GPS, I often had to use GPS. Everything works just fine, no problems at all. Okay, my conclusion and what I can say about this smartphone after everyday use during 6 months. Despite my nitpicking, this is a great smartphone. I cannot say anything for which I could strongly scold this phone. Excellent build quality, phone is protected on both sides by Gorilla Glass 5. A good IPS screen, fast interface, powerful, you can play games, big battery, good 64 megapixel camera, and NFC. Can I recommend this smartphone in 2020? Yes guys, I can. It went through a 6-month run-in and even now it looks like one of the best smartphones on the market, despite the fact that more than half a year has passed. If you look at the whole market, then you will see that nothing really was released. Redmi Note 9S, Samsung A51, Note 9S without NFC, Samsung is more expensive. Here it turns out that there are no alternatives for $183. You can of course still wait, because few more Redmi Note smartphones appeared on the market with NFCs, as well as Realme smartphones. They will be start selling in a while, but there will be already a completely different price, especially at the starting of selling the new models. Redmi Note 8 Pro is just a great deal for $183. Well, I hope that I have at least clarified the situation for you with this phone and you enjoyed my video. If you really liked it, push the like button, I really need it for YouTube algorithms. My name is Eugene, if you didn't know, subscribe to my channel if you didn't yet, and have a nice day. Всем добра!